In 2013, just over 10 years since the release of SimCity 4, EA and Maxis released SimCity, a modern take on what was the city builder of choice for many fans of the genre, and it was just okay. While the scope of the game was certainly smaller than what we'd seen a decade prior, and while it barely even worked at launch due to it requiring you to connect to EA servers that had crashed at the time due to the influx of players, I actually really enjoyed SimCity, and I enjoyed all that it had to offer at the time. That was, of course, until March of 2015, when Paradox Interactive and Colossal Order released Cities Skylines, and everything changed. As someone that grew up playing SimCity 3000 and SimCity 4, and who had gone so far as to buy the republished copies of games like Pharaoh and Hotel Tycoon from the bargain bin at the electronics store just because I loved those kinds of games, Cities Skylines immediately struck both myself and the city builder community at large as the true successor to the legacy that SimCity 4 had left, and that SimCity 2013 had tried, and I suppose failed, to continue. At the time of recording, it is February of 2019. It's almost 4 years since Cities Skylines released, and I've been thinking a lot recently about what the future holds for the game, and I'd very much like to discuss that at length, including ideas for future expansions and a potential sequel to the 2015 game. Cities Skylines Industries released in November 2018, and, at least to me, stands up there as the best expansion to the game to date, completely reigniting my interest in the game with the massive shakeup that it provided to the industrial micromanagement in the simulation. It built on a lot of what was done with the previous expansion, Park Life, going so far as to use the same district brush to assign dedicated industrial zones. Industries also happened to release 6 months after Park Life, which is almost exactly the average amount of time between expansions for the game since it released, and believe me, I've done the math. After Dark released in 2015, September to be precise, followed by Snowfall in February 2016. Natural Disasters was November 2016, with Mass Transit in May of 2017. Green Cities came in October of 2017, with Park Life following that in May of 2018. And of course, Industries was November 2018. When you look at the time between releases and include the release month itself, you have 5 months, 9 months, 6 months, 5 months, 7 months, and 6 months. Add those together, divide by the number of values, and you have 6.333 recurring months of time, on average, between Cities Skylines DLCs. This exact value would give the next DLC, if there is one, a release in June of 2019. However, I have a feeling it would more than likely be May of 2019. Now, I have no idea what the next expansion will be, just as I had no idea that Industries was on the way. I like to think I have a great relationship with Paradox, but I'm not privy to that kind of behind closed doors information. What would I like to see in the next DLC? I honestly couldn't even answer that. I think the game's gotten to a point where the expansions have, well, expanded so well on what's available in the base game that there's not a whole lot left to expand upon without bordering on the unnecessary or the obscure, especially given how well the modding community keeps this game moving forward already. Something that I'm super glad to see a light shone on by the official Cities Skylines YouTube channel in this past couple of weeks. So if we continue to look at the average number of months, we would find ourselves looking at a second expansion releasing in December of 2019. But before even getting there, we would have to look at an important event in October of this year, PDXCon, the Paradox Interactive convention, which for the first time is in Berlin, and held across 2 days, leaving plenty of room for announcements. And yes, we are ever so slightly bordering on conspiracy theories here. Do I think we'll have Cities Skylines 2 before or on the 5-year anniversary of the release of the first game? Honestly, no, I don't think we will. Do I think we'll see gameplay before the end of 2019? No, I think that's incredibly unlikely. Do I think we'll see Cities Skylines 2 announced at PDXCon 2019? Well, I think there's a solid chance. It would make for a fantastic bookend to the first game, if a little quickly after the hypothetical final expansion being only 4 months after the theorized release date. Do I think we'll see Cities Skylines 2 launch in 2020? Well, if it's announced at PDXCon 2019, I would expect it to launch probably middle of next year. So, yes, I suppose. If it's announced this year, it'll launch in 2020. Now, theories, speculation, and thought-provoking is all well and good, and is something that I quite like diving into from time to time. With that said, I can't stress enough that everything said thus far is just that. It's a series of thoughts and theories that I have been sitting on for a while, and that I've thrown back and forth around some friends to see what they think. Some think that I'm clutching at straws. Others see where I'm coming from, and some just want me to shut up and focus on the current game of Apex Legends. So I suppose, moving on from these theories, let's talk about what I'd like to see in a sequel to Cities Skylines. What features would make it a worthwhile purchase and a worthy successor to an already feature-rich game? First and foremost, I think we can all agree that the traffic AI in Cities Skylines could use some work. While it's absolutely fine for a lot of players, the traffic AI really starts to falter with more sophisticated builds and road layouts, causing tailbacks, societal collapse, and, honestly, the eventual fall and demise of civilization as we know it. The limitation of traffic AI is caused by a number of things, although, to my knowledge, it's primarily a combination of the Unity game engine and a desire to keep the minimum specs of the game low enough as to make it accessible to a wider range of players. Of course, this means that the minimum specs for Cities Skylines would have likely been locked down in 2014 during the development that led to the release of the game the following March in 2015. Now, I'd happily guarantee that the average specs of a PC in 2019 is going to be significantly higher than those 5 years ago, so in theory a sequel should easily achieve a much more realistic traffic simulation. I know I would personally be excited about improved merging on highways and avenues, hopefully moving far, far away from the current system where vehicles, in some cases, will come to a complete stop on a highway in order to merge lanes, rather than trying to merge with the flow of traffic. A way to perhaps establish ring roads that the traffic would prefer over inner city roads would go a long way to help with this too. I can imagine this feature working much in the same way that the current priority road system does, where you simply toggle the ring road on or off, with the on setting causing it to become the preferred way for traffic to get to a location or an area, even if an inner city road was a shorter, direct distance. I suppose it would sort of be a little bit of the old town policy in there as well. Now, thinking a little bit more outside of the box, I'd actually love to see a Cities Skylines sequel tackle multiplayer, even just as a further dig at what SimCity 2013 attempted to do. On a more serious note, this is actually an idea I've put some serious thought into, and I think with the right setup, it could absolutely work. As we all know, Cities Skylines has a fairly robust district zoning system through which you can essentially grant buffs to a specific area, or designate a location as farming, forestry, leisure, tourism, or even a park. It's all done with the same style of brush and with the same types of buttons. So why not extend that existing system to a multiplayer game, with the host player being the one that has the full control over all of it? Imagine this. You start a new multiplayer game of Cities Skylines on a beautiful new map. You invite your friends and you all throw around ideas for what could go where, why it should go there, and how it would be laid out. One of you will build a beautiful beachfront. One will work on an airport and industrial zone. Another will work on suburbs, and you will work on the city center itself. Everyone has an idea of what they want to do, and as the host, you then go in and lay out districts, each with additional host controls that allow you to tell the game that a given player isn't allowed to build outside of the designated district. Not only would this be a means to prevent any messing with other players, it'd be a way to make sure things get done efficiently and that everyone's focusing on their own work. Essentially, the district policy system could be cloned and transformed into a sort of permissions system for multiplayer games of Cities Skylines. Much like how Minecraft servers back in the day would grant users areas to build in based on a fairly straightforward permission system. Not that Minecraft and Cities Skylines have much of the same thing going on with their code, or much in common at all, actually. Let's forget that I even mentioned Minecraft. Look, I'll be real with you. I could sit here and spit hot fire for hours about what would be awesome in a Cities Skylines sequel, and most of it would be, well, incredibly unlikely to even make it to the drawing boards at Colossal Order. But what about what you guys think? What about what you guys want? What about the ideas that you have for this hypothetical sequel? Well, at the end of January, I asked on Twitter what you would all like to see in Cities Skylines 2, and there were some fantastic responses. Daniel Williams 13 said, "I think seasons. It's great having snowfall, but how about like rainstorms, heat waves, normal summers, and winters?" And honestly, I actually totally agree with this. I think having a city that has to deal with what the seasons throw at it would add an extra challenge to the management side of city building, and would lead to some interesting economic changes too. For example, in the winter, you're going to need more road maintenance, and you're going to need hot water, leading to more expenses on those services. In the summer, those services could have their budget lowered since they'll barely be used at all, really. I mean, hot water, yes, but a whole lot less than in winter. Likewise, public transport in autumn and winter could be shown to be more popular. Since the weather would be worse, it would be colder, and this would, in theory, lead to less people wanting to walk from point A to point B. Massey Spinks 93 threw out the idea of something more noob-friendly. "I love Cities Skylines, but I can't for the life of me figure the game out. Even after your helpful videos, I still struggle. Maybe a tutorial mode at least. Something more in-depth. It's the damn roads, man. They f me over all the time." This is also a brilliant idea. Cities Skylines does already have a help and hint system, but expanding upon that would likely be a great way to help new players get into the meat of the game that little bit faster. I'd actually like to see a similar system to the one in Imperator Rome, one of Paradox's upcoming games that I got to play last year at a press event. Imperator Rome actually has a tutorial that gives you a series of objectives that teach you how to get started, how to develop towns, how to build your army, and how to go to war. As you progress, the tutorial naturally opens up to give you a little more room to use things that you've been taught so far to complete the objectives that follow. It's a fantastic system that helped me, a complete dunce when it comes to those kinds of games, get to grips with how it works very, very quickly. An objective-based tutorial in Cities Skylines, I think, would be absolutely excellent. So there were actually a whole bunch more tweets in response to my question, and you can read through those by following the direct link to my tweet found down in the description of this video. Similarly, if you have an idea for what you would love to see in a Cities Skylines sequel, then drop a comment on this video and tell me and the whole community all about it. I'd love to see what ideas we can all throw out there and discuss. We all have different goals, ideas, and ways of playing when it comes to city builders, so getting a discussion going would be lovely, and I suppose I'll go first, in response to something that Cities Skylines themselves tweeted while I was writing this video. So they tweeted, "Let's brainstorm. Should construction be a part of Cities Skylines? How would it work? Does construction give you uncontrollable feelings of rage, or would you be excited to see your roads shut down and angry drivers forced to merge after rows and rows of orange traffic cones?" So as far as I'm concerned, this is a total no-brainer. I would absolutely, without a doubt, love to see construction, and I suppose demolition, come to Cities Skylines. It would lead to an entirely new way of playing and developing your cities, as you would need to accommodate for the construction work and the potential impact on traffic and the surrounding areas as a direct result. It would be something extra to manage, and I think that's a great thing, especially since Cities Skylines can very quickly become a city painter rather than a city management game. Perhaps having an additional mode somewhere in the game, though, more of a God mode, where things don't need construction and instead just appear right away like they already do. Perhaps that would be a way to keep everyone happy. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for today. I could go on for a long time about this topic, but I would much rather hear your thoughts on the entire thing. So that is going to do us for today. Thank you very much for watching. It's been my pleasure, as always. And, as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!